good morning and welcome. This is Sunrise Daily. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Add to that the fact that this is a beautiful Thursday morning from here in Lagos. I'm Karadoki Kilo.
Well, the sun is also up here in Abuja, bright and early. Good morning. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
Oh, goodness.
Well, you guys seem to be in competition. It's Lagos, it's Abuja, but no problem.
It's no competition. But, you know, yes, the weather might be good in the nation's capital, Abuja, compared to Lagos. But one thing that is present across states in this country is the youth bulge. I mean, it's not like any state has more than the other. You'd see that there are youths across the states, but that's just half of the story. The other side is the fact that a large percentage of those youths are not as should I say, engaged as they ought to be. And that has been a huge concern for not just government, but for institutions, bilateral, multilateral institutions, telling Nigeria that, well, the way things are going, if you don't ensure that these young people are well engaged, they're well empowered, let's just use the term employed, then you will have a huge problem on your hands in the coming weeks, months, years, and decades. And I mean, taking a look at the unemployment figures, 33% speaks volumes of the challenge we have on our hands. Add to that underemployment. I mean, add to that COVID-19 that we just saw. The fact that we don't even have enough data to capture how much of an impact COVID-19 has had on young people who are maybe trying to start businesses, small-scale businesses. The fact that we don't have that data is worrisome to me because a lot of people have been affected, and I'm sure you probably know people, or you have probably been affected. So the head of the Africa Development Bank, Akumi Adesina, actually put out a statement trying to reach out to the government of Nigeria that, you know what, you need to pay attention to the youth. I'd like you to listen to this briefly.
206 million people, 70% of which are under the age of 30 years. What Nigeria does with its youth will determine the future of Nigeria. The greater wealth of Nigeria, and of course the rest of Africa, will come from the youth. The youth are not the problem of Nigeria. The youth are the assets of Nigeria. We must not relegate the youth to the background. We must put the youth in the fore. It is time to create youth-based wealth in Africa. The past must yield to the present, the old to the new. The dominant phrase should not be, the young shall grow. It must be, the young have arrived. Not only must there be a generational shift, there must be a wealth shift by unlocking the potential of the youth. We must not see the youth as risks. We must see the youth as assets. As a nation, Nigeria must do all possible to reinvent itself by focusing on the youth. Yet, Nigeria's youth face several challenges, including unemployment, limited technical and vocational skills, limited inclusion in the social and political space, and lack financing for their ventures and businesses.
Youth-based wealth. That was a major point of what he said. And I mean, if we didn't learn from the NSAS movement, a lot of that was just the youth channeling their energy, saying that we have so much energy and we can make things work. So if we didn't learn from that, I wonder really what is going to change our minds. But the clear challenge we have is that we have a youth bulge, over 50% young Nigerians that could actually get wealth for Nigeria that are not being engaged as they ought to.
You know, the exact figure Professor Akumi Adesina used is 70% are under 30. And you also referenced the NSAS protests, how that activities were galvanized, resources spent and accounted for by the young population, in a way that showed transparency, accountability, and purposeful performance. But But it's not the first time we're having the youth come together and make impact in this country. A good number of revered nationalists today, we all know were well below the age of 30. Some of them were well below the age, every one of them was well below the age of 35. Every single one of them. Name any one of them that was above. And many of them did everything they could to bring Nigeria to where it is today. The man who called for the independence of Nigeria was not up to 30 at the time. And all these facts are well known to all of us. So if we have had that historical antecedent of the youth playing a major role in this country, what happened to us that we cannot galvanize the same youth now to do a lot more? What the young population of that age had was education, better than their parents. And the parents yielded the floor to them, so to speak. Today, the young population have technology, whether we like it or not. I mean, look at again what the NSAS, how the NSAS was achieved. It was galvanization through technology. So if we cannot leverage on that, sincerely, I don't know where we want to begin. Now, we all know that there is a huge issue. Kaudi mentioned it. Professor Adeoshina also mentioned it. A very, very huge unemployment figure that we have on our hands. And if you look at the vulnerabilities of our vulnerabilities to insecurity, a lot of it is economic. Frank Mbade, PPRO of the police, said one day that most of the crimes that we have on our hands are economic criminality. They're economic, crimes, economic criminality. That only says something, that people want to make money. And we can galvanize them to make money legitimately, if only we could provide them the right atmosphere. And the time is no better than now. Add to that gender inequality as well. I think I'll leave Marco to do that one.
Indeed, gentlemen, listening to the words, when I listened to the words of Mr. Adesina yesterday, I asked myself, what does it really take to implement or to take on board some of what he has said? It is a fact that we have a youth bulge. It is a fact that, the youth bulge maybe would have equal populations of maybe male and female, roughly about equal composition of the different genders, the male and female gender, more specifically. I'm not adding any other gender here. And you have to say that at every point it would seem that we have found ways to hamper the youth from making progress, so that in many instances, because I think I have made this analogy before on this program, but with some other issue, that in many ways the average Nigerian has found a way to keep going despite government or in spite of government, because oftentimes a lot of people are detached, not aware of their government. They just find a way to keep going, to make a living for themselves despite government. And if you look all around you, if you look at how young people have been able to use technology, is it Instagram, is it Twitter, to find a way to leverage on those technologies and make a way for themselves. You now begin to find that what government now tries to do is to introduce taxes that hamper businesses in that area. Let me give you an instance. Courier services. It is something that has the rise of courier services, especially you can call them logistic services, especially in the wake of e-commerce. You find that yes, a lot of marketing is going on online, a lot of commerce is going on online, but in real time, you need people to be able to move goods from one place to another. It could be intracity, it could be intercity, and a lot of young people are involved in this business. We just woke up one morning and and found out that, oh, there was now going to be tax, or that, you know, if you didn't have a certain amount of money, you were going to be excluded from the business. And this was a policy that government was coming up with. We heard later on that, oh, no, that was not from, it was not from this, and there was now a lot of, you know, buck passing. And then thankfully, that particular policy was rescinded wherever it was that it came from. That shouldn't be the case. It should be that, you know, there is an arm of government, or maybe not an arm, but maybe a parastatal of government, whose job it is to find out what it is that young people are doing. What are they most involved in? What can they do? I mean, how are we structuring their education these days for them to even leverage better the opportunities that government provides? And when you find, I beg your pardon, yes, the government could provide for them. They've already provided for themselves, but what are we doing in that regard? And then how are we able to also ensure that all the gender are carried along? I don't think that, you know, there is any policy of government in that regard to look at it even if, you know, from beyond the youth population. Take a look at what happened recently with the governing councils of universities. The governing councils of 5 universities were reconstituted, and guess what? Not one woman was found worthy to be in the governing councils of these universities that were reconstituted. What message does that send, for instance, to women or to young girls who are supposed to be among this youth bulge? It certainly doesn't tell well. I sometimes wonder if that is an oversight. And this is by a government that now claims that, oh, you know, we're going to be sending a bill to the National Assembly to entrench the 35% affirmative action. You cannot be saying one thing and doing another thing. I want to believe that whoever it was that came up with that particular composition would do something in that regard, so that, because people are learning by example. I was somewhere yesterday amongst young people. You should see their energy, but at the same time, you should also see their level of detachment. There's an initiative of NILT, which is like to the legislative arm of government what NIPS is to the executive arm of government, and their job is to try and educate part of their job is to try and educate young people on the functions of the National Assembly. And some of the questions and the answers that were given yesterday were a little telling. I believe that government should deliberately find a way to come down to the level of its young people, to appeal to them. When I mean appeal to them, to make itself attractive to them, so that we can see more young people, male and female included. And it should not be that when they get to a certain ceiling, oh, this is now the exclusive preserve of males, as we're currently seeing with this university appointment. Let us hope that it will be that when we're carrying our young people along, when eventually we do, it will be equal opportunities for both male and female. Gentlemen.
Well, I guess the job is cut out for the government to do what they need to do. Don't forget what the Amnesty International has said. We have lost a generation. But have we? Let's go to the papers right away. We have quite a few of them. The Vanguard newspaper is first this morning. 60 billion naira printed for March allocation. Obaseki lied. Ascribed to the federal government. That's what you have as lead of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. Issue raised by Edo State Governor Sad, not a fact. Finance Minister adds, not true. We printed money. Not true we printed money to share at FAC, says Nigeria's debt at sustainable level. Allocation shortages, usually augmented from equalization fund. As ascribed to a finance ministry official. Stories on page 5. What's only interesting to me here is Obaseki is a governor and sits at the national economic meetings, economic committee or economic council meetings, and he said this, and we're saying no, we need more facts. So many other stories you find. Mayhem in Gombe as Boko Haram wreaks havoc in Borno. Stories on page 5. 7 years after, Zulum says Chibok girls will be recovered. Over 20 parents have died from waiting, ascribed to BBOG. Stories on page 12. Mr. and Mrs. very quickly. People saw both of you, that's Mrs., They said you gave her 10,000 naira as you were mounting the stairs to her flat and that you later came down to meet her. And Mr. says, look, my philosophy is to be kind to people I meet on my way up. I may meet them on my way down.
Oh dear.
You have Vanguard Sports on the back page.
Okay, take a look at the Guardian newspaper, the lead story. Avoid reckless money printing to fund deficits, experts warn. So clearly that talk about printing 60 billion naira is catching on. You see, writers, it is untrue we printed 60 billion naira, FG replies Obaseki. Seek alternative funding options as country risks falling into hyperinflation. And Senate summons Minister AGF over 7.5 billion naira secret withdrawals. So there's a lot of clearing of the air that needs to be done at these levels. So we wait to see how that one pans out, but it looks like there's something there. And quickly, this one, red flags over AstraZeneca J&J deal, new blow to vaccination drive. If you've been following the stories, you'd see that there's been a lot of twists and turns in this vaccine deployment process. AstraZeneca changed its name to Vaxveria, but it seems that's still not changing much for the vaccine. A couple of other stories on the front page. Let's leave it there for the Guardian. Mark,
Let's do Daily Trust now. You see that over 100,000 flee to Niger Republic after Boko Haram attacks Borno town. Is a lead story there. 10 more people killed in Damasak, houses burned, women, children in distress. That's from legislators. And you see there, bandits besiege armed forces staff college in Kaduna. Osun suspends 3 principals over secession preaching. That's also on the front page of the paper. Expatriates taking over Nigerian jobs. Well, perhaps that word should be foreigners taking over Nigerian jobs. That's from the federal government of Nigeria. They can't be lamenting about this. Shouldn't they do something about it? They have a number of other stories for you at the bottom. Bandits besieged Armed Forces Staff College in Kaduna. A very disturbing story. Page 8 has it. And they also have that 60 billion naira story. Printing of 60 billion naira. You lied. Federal government replies Obaseki. It's also on the front page of Daily Trust. Let's leave it there for the paper.
The Nigerian Tribune comes next. There are plots to incite war in Southeast. Umahi. Find that story on page 2. He was guest on this program yesterday, and that's where you find that from. But then the details are on page 2 of the paper this morning. Right above the nameplate, that story is not going away anytime soon. 60 billion not printed to support March allocation. FG replies Obaseki. Find that story on page 3. And I don't know if you find this one interesting. Buhari, APC's misrule caused Twitter to choose Ghana over Nigeria. Ascribed to PDP. Okay, well, you'll find that story again on page 25. Johnson vows to sustain strike until 36 states comply with financial autonomy. Again, that one you'll find on page 25 of the Nigerian Tribune this morning.
Take a look at the front page of the New Telegraph newspaper. The lead, alleged 1.4 billion naira fraud. EFCC arrests ex-Akwa Ibom AG Woko. 7.9 billion naira fraud allegation. Anti-graft agency only invited me, Okorocha. So there are two, major stories regarding fraud allegation, alleged fraud, where you see they're in the billions. 1.4 billion, 7.9 billion. Oh dear. Well, pages 2 and 29 has more details. You see this one right under the big picture. Secession, not solution to Nigeria's problems. It's coming from FEC. Approves 20.1 billion naira for customs, 532 million naira for UI. What's that for? Well, you find more details. You see, we aren't giving up on Chibok girls. That's credited to the presidency. A couple of other stories you will find on the front page of the New Telegraph. So how about you do the picking yourself? Mark.
Blueprint has this one. Illicit financial flow. 10 ex-governors own 30 billion naira properties in UK. That's according to a report. 216 properties linked to 13 security agents in UAE. $15 billion lost to tax evasion by multinationals in Nigeria. It's a page 6 read for you. And you see that this one, Borno troops foil attack on Muslim faithful breaking fast. Looks like this group is getting more cowardly by the day. Why would you want to attack people who are breaking a fast? Deny Damasak attack, Leah Sharibu others. Rescue efforts still on, that's what the federal government says. And you also see there, FEC approves 20.1 billion naira contract for customs equipment. A number of other stories, but the pictures are worth 1,000 words. You might want to see where that happened. Destruction, houses burned during a communal clash between Waja and Lugunda in Yuwa community in Balanga local government area of Gombe. That happened on Tuesday. Let's leave it there for Blueprint newspapers.
Take a look at the front page of the Daily Times newspaper. And, you know, yesterday we were in that conversation and some people were asking, what happened to Amotekun? Well, this is what you have on the front page. Powerful forces stop Sanwo-Olu on Amotekun. What does that mean? Page 2 of the Daily Times newspaper has that one today. Caution for leaders, or Simbajo cautions leaders on discrimination against developing nations, vaccines hoarding and all. Insecurity, Ebonyi State killing. Senate demands comprehensive investigation from IGP. That one is also right there. And right above the nameplate, FG frowns at foreigners taking over menial jobs in Nigeria. The question that you want to ask is, what do we do to make sure that doesn't happen again?
You know, the irony of it all is the fact that, I mean, in some other climes you find foreigners doing the menial jobs and it's like a thing. But here we're protecting the menial jobs.
We're saying,
because clearly unemployment is huge.
And not just unemployment, education, qualifications.
Oh dear. Well, next up is Daily Independent, and it's my pleasure to walk you through the front page. The lead story: ripples in PDP over Saraki's alleged presidential bid. Oh yeah, that's how Daily Independent leads. Without zoning, nobody can decide eligibility. That's coming from the party, so it's politics for Daily Independent. And you see this one right on top of the nameplate. FG mute on Buhari's return date from UK. Fault Obaseki's claim of printing 60 billion for FAC allocation. In fact, OK's 539.277 billion for FIRS building. So clearly there are those who are missing the president already, but it seems the federal government is not saying much on that. Daily Independent for you this morning.
But let's look at leadership now. 2023, we can't zone presidency, others without Buhari governors. That's according to the APC. It's no longer news. Their jostling for 2023 seems to be in full swing now, which ought not to be the case, but is the reality. It's a page 4 read. Aston Villa says Buhari may return weekend. There was uncertainty in the last paper. Aston Villa says Buhari may return weekend is what leadership is reporting. JAMB loses 10 million naira to fraudsters, scraps use of email for registration. And look at this one. Anti-COVID-19 properties found in Nigerian spices, vegetables. This is according to a study. I guess people are still wondering how it is that Nigerians, even though yes, we did lose people to the COVID-19 crisis. However, it wasn't as bad as it was feared it was going to be. Look at this one. A number of other stories on the corner here. Growing concerns as fluctuating naira, unstable power supply scare investors from Nigeria. It's a page 4 read. I think that someone should definitely respond to this one. Let's leave it there for leadership newspapers.
And the Nigerian News Direct leads with local content. FG to sanction violators of expatriate quota rules, as ascribed to Aregbesola, the Minister of Interior. You find the details on the inside pages. NAFDAC intercepts truck conveying banned unwholesome medicines and vaccines in Asaba. Well, question you want to ask is, how did it get in the first place? Someone doing his job or not doing his job well? So many other issues you find around that one. And of course, a good number of other stories, including Obaseki's comment on printing 60 billion naira to share in March untrue, sad. That's ascribed to FG. Lagos, Ebonyi, Niger residents pay highest for petrol in March. That's ascribed to the NBS. What does that mean? The details are on page 21 of the Nigerian News Direct this morning. Well, that's it for the paper and for the review of papers, some of the dailies you'll find on the newsstands this morning. We're back to take on the issues for the day. Just stay with us.
On April 14, 2014, residents of Chibok community in Borno State were shocked as gunmen invaded the government girls' secondary school in the community and took away over 200 schoolgirls. The Boko Haram sect would later claim responsibility for attack with a video of some of the girls in captivity. The abduction generated several reactions, both locally and internationally, all demanding for action from the government to secure the release of the girls. The children were aged between 16 and 18 years and were in their final year in school. There was initial confusion about the number of girls kidnapped, but after a head count, police confirmed that 276 girls were kidnapped, and on May 2nd, 53 of them escaped while being transported to another location. There were several attempts to rescue the girls, but the efforts, which include negotiation and military operation, did not yield much fruit at the initial stage. While some of the girls escaped, like Amina Nkeki, who was rescued by local vigilante with a baby on May 18, 2016, others were rescued after some negotiations with the group. 21 of them were released by the group on October 13, 2016, after negotiation with the federal government. The military secured the release of Mariam Mayanga. She too was with a baby when she was rescued. The army also secured the release of another girl, Rakia Abubakar, on January 5, 2017. She was rescued with a 6-month-old baby. The sect also released 82 of the girls on May 6, 2017, after successful negotiation with the federal government. Meanwhile, the sect continued to publish videos of the abducted girls, sometimes claiming that some of the girls had died during a military operation to dislodge the group. On January 4, 2018, the Nigerian military stated that it had rescued Salome Pogu, another of the kidnapped girls. It's been 7 years since the abduction, and the campaign is still on for the rescue of the remaining 112 girls. The painful part for the parents of those still in captivity is that no one knows their fate.
That's the topic of our discussion this morning. We have three gentle people to discuss this matter. We have Ayuba John Bassa, who is the National Coordinator of the Gwoza Christian Community Association, GCCA. Mr. Bassa, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
We also have Aisha Yusufu, who's been a prominent activist in the Bring Back Our Girls movement. You're welcome, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
And Mr. Alan Manassa is a strategic team member of the Bring Back Our Girls movement. You're also welcome as well.
Thank you for having me.
It's been 7 years, and it's unbelievable that we're still here. But for a number of people who have ever wondered how it was possible for so many girls, over 300 of them, to have been kidnapped at the point, perhaps with the happenings of recent times, the kidnap of even more children, boys, girls, from school, some of them even tertiary institutions, perhaps that answer has now been given as to how it was possible. But 7 years on, the very first school where this happened, we still haven't been able to recover all of the children. The question is, how come we haven't given up hope 7 years on. Let me start with you, Mr. Bassa.
Hope needs to be kept alive at all time, but disappointment with regards to promises made every day, now and then, and you don't see any action, do have the tendency of extinguishing hopes from the hearts of the people. But we are being built up with hope as part of our life. We will continue to put hope. Perhaps God will bring someone who will bring hope to life and to reality. Until we see it with our eyes and hold it with our hands, we will continue to put hope. Even though a lot of disappointment, the military has disappointed us, the politicians have disappointed us, the civilian JTF have disappointed us. Whoever has a mouth to say with regards to our security in this country for the past 7 years have disappointed us. We don't have any hope in them, but we have hope in God. We are naturally built in hope. We'll continue to put our hope. Perhaps God can use a stone, God can use animals, God can use anything, not on our government again, not on our securities again. Our hope lies on God alone.
However, the agitations are still on. When you hold these memorials every year without fail, what message are you really trying to send? Let me ask you, Madam Aisha Yusufu.
Well, first of all, hope endures, and the message we're trying to send is the fact that the Nigerian life matters, and that every one of us must be treated the same, irrespective of whatever place one is from and what is the economic status of one. For us, we say no Nigerian is more Nigerian than any Nigerian, and the fact that Chibok girls were taken away 7 years ago, and they have not all been brought back, says everything about the value that the Nigerian state places on its citizens. And we look at it and we say that the rescue of our Chibok girls is not a privilege, it's their right as enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And when we make demands for them, we are not doing them a favor, we're simply doing that which is right. And it's very important and very instructive for Nigerians to understand, and the world to understand, that there are still 112 Chibok girls that are in captivity. And my daughter, on the 1000th day of the abduction, said, as long as Chibok girls remain in captivity, we all are in captivity. And like you alluded to earlier, and I hope people have seen it now, that our silence about Chibok girls, our doubt that indeed an abduction happened, which was done by the previous government, unforgivable at that, and which a lot of people have taken up to today. There are people who still say the abduction never happened. All of what we did emboldened the terrorists to come and know that they can take citizens, and they're doing, and also give the government enabling environment to abdicate their responsibility.
Well, it is sad indeed. But nonetheless, this government might claim that was in the last government, that they have tried to bring some of these girls back. Do you think that for those that are left in captivity, is it a lack of will to bring them back, or do you think that they themselves maybe they think that the cost is too great? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
It's not about governance. Is not about individual. It's about functional systems. It's about continuity of what we know that is lawful and right to do. So the fact that Chibok girls were abducted during President Goodluck Jonathan does not mean that any incoming president will feel like it has not happened during my time. It's the same police we have, it's the same Nigerian military we have, it's the same all security architecture we have in the country that the incoming CNC inherited. So it's not about himself. And I can say categorically, yes, it's about absence of will and grandstanding on failure and impunity, because we are not talking about animals, we are talking about human beings. Over 100 human beings that have been out there. And issue of providing excuse for anything is not even there. The right thing to do is what strategy has been used in getting them back that was successful? What strategy again can we employ and use? Do we need increase in capacity? Where can we get that capacity and harness and make use of it and get the girls back? These girls are not kept in the moon. They are kept on our soil in Nigeria. And it's not that there was complete absence of intelligence on these girls. There have been repeated intelligence on and on from those escaping from the insurgents. If you go to any of the camps in Borno State, you will see new entrants almost on daily basis. The displacement tracking matrix of IOM have been reporting that one again and again. And each time I visit any of these camps, I do meet people that will say, recently I met a lady that said the clothes she was wearing when she escaped, she borrowed it from one of the Chibok girls because she washed her on and she used the Chibok girls on to escape in the night. So, which means we have intelligence on ground that the government need to make use of it and get the girls back. So it's clearly absence of will. It's clearly absence of that interest that this issue need to be treated with urgency.
I asked that question because in recent times, I don't know if you've been following the conversation. In the wake of more children being kidnapped from schools, there have been conversation as to whether or not, whether ransom should be paid. The federal government denied that there was ever ransom paid for the return of the girls, of the Chibok girls who were brought back, even though a lot of people do think that ransom was paid. The federal government said no such thing happened. In many instances, since the Chibok girls were kidnapped, and in new instances where we've seen children being kidnapped, it will seem that ransom has been paid. There has been conversation in that regard. And some people will say, at that point, we noticed that there was an upsurge of terrorist attacks, which is still going on. So on the one hand, some people will say, is it wise, even though the federal government says there was no ransom paid, but is it wise to empower the terrorists, so to speak, because we want to get some of our girls back? I don't know what your thoughts have been on this matter. Even generally speaking, we're still talking about the Afaka 35 who were taken from the College of Forestry. Do you want to quickly intervene on that?
I would say the primary responsibility of any government is to protect the lives and properties of each citizen. And any government that cannot protect the lives and properties of its citizens is not fit to be called the government. One of the things that people need to understand is, like I said earlier, it's a right for every Nigerian that is taken away to be rescued by the government. Remember that the government, first of all, had failed that citizen. We're talking about Chibok girls now, had failed them by not adequately protecting them from being abducted by the terrorists. So when it comes to the rescue of our Chibok girls and any Nigerian in captivity, the government knows what to do. It has all the information. It's either negotiation, military action, or a combination of negotiation and military action. What we say is that do nothing is not an option. Nigerian being taken away and then we forget about them over there, it's never and will never be the option to take. And the government, with all the information it's supposed to have and the resources within it, should be able to choose what is the best way out. When we talk about there is a surge in insurgency and all of that, what's our military doing? Why are we wasting billions of dollars on them? Why are people being recruited? We've lost a lot of soldiers on ground. They're not being given adequate leadership. They're not being given strategic leadership. Why is the military and the Air Force not working hand in hand? We get information. People say that, Boko Haram have been sighted somewhere, and then you're expecting, why is the Air Force not taking them out when you sight them? So all of this comes back to the box of the president and commander-in-chief. We have a commander-in-chief who is supposed to give strategic leadership, and that is missing, and that's what needs to be done. When people say that, should we negotiate for people or get our citizens back, the question I always ask them, when they are taken, would they want the government to do everything that it can to bring them back, or would they want Nigerians to turn away? Otherwise, every one of us is a victim waiting to happen. And I think Nigerians need to understand that the victim card is going round. Being a victim in Nigeria is no longer a matter of if, it is a matter of when, because we are all victims waiting to happen. Who is next to be taken away?
It's a big question. It's a big question, but I don't know, first and foremost, if you want to, intervene on that particular question, but there are people who, who will be wondering how the community has coped, the coping mechanism, because some people will say, to wait for 7 years, the anxiety of that is enough. I mean, you reported yesterday that over 20 Chibok parents have died waiting for their girls. The anxiety of that is enough to kill any parent. What has been the coping mechanisms for those who are still very much around?
Like I earlier said, disappointment, promises not being fulfilled every day. I could picture when the Chibok issue earlier happened, and most of the people within Goza settlement then will tell you the houses where which 3 days after they are captured were divided into. Those Chibok girls have been in Goza for more than 3 or 4 weeks. 3 days in this house, they will be changed. They will be changed into other houses and be being taught on how to recite scriptures or so within Goza. So if you go to Goza, it's as if the memory is today. They will say it is this house and this house, they are being kept. So the moment you hear this kind of a thing and your reflection come back to life and say, why not keep them there? By now, they would have been out and all of us would have seen them. The issue of financing is that who benefits into that money? If the government will know that they are being kept in number 1 house, 2 house, and the 3 house, if you remove the government money and still pay, who are you paying when you know clearly where they are? Are you not paying the people that are guarding them for you for political reasons? I am sure if then Jonathan were in the political party, because it was a rival political party with Borno State, those girls wouldn't have missing. They would have been there. So they were used to frustrate him. They were used to frustrate the counterparty during that time. The memory is still in the heart of these people, because when you see and know that today they are there, the next day they are there, the next day they are there, and you are helpless, who will bring my daughter and until they disappear?
In other words, they were used as political pawns.
Of course. That I will continue to say. Even if you go to Goza, town, ask anybody, they will still tell you they were used, for political rivalry, just to discredit the powers then. And I will continue to say that because everybody knew step by step. I could point the 4 houses. I could point the route which they pass. And, the average people then in Goza Wakani, that's an area within the Goza, will tell you the story, how it happens, and how they are being carried away, how they are being fed.
Are you in touch with the parents of Chibok?
Yes.
You are?
Yes.
Well, what has been their coping mechanism? With the knowledge of this, how have they been able to, just keep life going?
Well, it's not been easy with them because, it's not easy to take care of disappointment, actually, like I will continue to say. I say what we know it would have been possible and has been turned into impossibility. It is not, to an average Chibok parent, they do not see the insurgents as their enemy. They always see the government as their enemy, because it was the laxity then of the government, rival government, who decided to do that for political reason. So they don't see the insurgents as the greatest enemy. Even though today you cannot go out and farm, like in Kautikari and Kwayagurum, you can't go out to farm. Within the Chibok settlement, you can't go out. And then they still do not see the problem as it comes from the insurgents. They see it as if it is a government problem, because if they say we should go to farm today, we will go and farm and come back and nothing will happen. If they say they will bring out our daughters, since they see and they know the trends which our children follow, one day at a time and one step at a time, and they refuse to bring them. So, that is an average Chibok person, and they are right. The government is at fault, not even the insurgents in the first place, because they have every right to stop that from day one. They refuse. They refuse.
If I can just interject in a bit. First of all, I just need us to understand that a president is a president, and the president of Nigeria is the commander-in-chief. And one of the things that we do as citizens is to try to sometimes give them a leeway and make excuses for the president. When the Chibok girls' abduction happened, there was a state of emergency in Borno State. So literally, the military was in charge of Borno State, and we had a commander-in-chief that is at the top there that ought to have given instruction. So all this conversation about whether there was a rival party or not, for me personally, I think it doesn't come into play. When we look at the Kankara abduction was done from the state of the president. There's no rival party, so who is going to blame who now in that instance? I remember in 2014, a lot of people from the northern part of the country would say to me, and did say that a lot, that the reason why the insurgency wasn't being won was because Goodluck Ebele Jonathan is for the Niger Delta region, which is my region, by the way. And I used to tell them, no, it isn't. That even if the insurgency was happening in the Niger Delta region, it would have still been the same thing, because it's all about capacity, it's all about competence and incompetence that was at play at that time, and it's still at play right now. When we have citizens who are busy siding with whoever government is in power because they like the party or they like the president, or we're losing, and the terrorists are winning, the insurgents are winning, the criminals are winning. Of all of them, they do not care who is in power. They are united in inflicting terror on Nigeria, and I think we should put the issue on our government, because the government's primary duty is to protect our lives and our properties, and where that government fails, we must hold them accountable. In terms of, like Dr. Alan Manasseh said earlier, intelligence wasn't gathered and isn't still being gathered about Chibok girls. The 57, when Chibok girls' abduction happened, 276 were taken away immediately. 57 were able to escape immediately after the abduction. Do you know, up to today, none of them had ever been questioned by our security agencies to find intelligence from them. How then were you? There was no political will to go in and rescue them. President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, for 19 days, never spoke about Chibok girls. He didn't believe there was an abduction. So if there's a rival party in Borno State, and that's the reason why it was taken, was it the rival party that also made former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan not to speak on the issue of the Chibok girls for 19 days? We must learn to focus and hold government accountable. It's not about conspiracy theories. Like at the Bring Back Our Girls movement, we say that even if it's the parents that took away their own children, we must ensure they bring them back. These are little children we are talking about. It's 7 years. And the way I put the Chibok girls up, when I look at the years, when it happened, my daughter was 12 when it happened. Today she was in year 9, which is like year 3. Today she's in the university, in her second year in the university. But the lives of Chibok girls and that of their parents have been on hold for 7 whole years. And let's remember, when you take away the child of the poor, you are not just taking away their child or their children. You are taking away a whole lifetime, a whole generation. Because to the poor, they do not have investments, they do not have assets, they do not have properties. They invest everything in their children. And their children are the ones that are supposed to take care of them. They are their pension and go on to take care of their siblings. Most of the Chibok girls, they are first daughters, they are first children. And you know what that means in the African context.
Exactly. I think I will align myself to...
I will let you intervene in the matter when we come back from this break. Please stay with us. Ayuba John Bassa, National Coordinator of Gwoza Christian Community Association, Alan Manasseh, who's a strategic team member, Bring Back Our Girls movement, and Mam Aisha Yesufu, who is also a member of the Bring Back Our Girls movement, are still with us in the studio. And we're talking about the about the Chibok girls, 7 years on. Just before we went on break, you were about to align yourself with Madam Yusufu.
Exactly. Issue of conspiracy theory around the abduction of the Chibok girls, to me, is that does not arise because as a president and as government, good governance deserves that accountability is key. And as the Bring Back Our Girls movement keep asking, we want the truth, nothing but the truth. All the conspiracy theories, who is responsible in exposing them and in punishing those that have caused pain upon people or in breaking any law? It was the president, the commander-in-chief. So there is no excuse whatsoever to be provided by anybody that it was a push to frustrate someone in government. If I am the president, I have the apparatus of governance and my hand, the security architecture and any other thing. So it is my own responsibility as a president to expose and to reveal whichever conspiracy theory on ground. Girls were abducted. There was intelligence before the attack. They were abducted. The president decided to keep mute for days, and he did nothing until the girls keep disappearing and being reduced into a smaller number. So there is no excuse that anyone can provide 7 years down that it was a push by politics or politicians or political parties to frustrate anyone in government. You will allow yourself to be frustrated as a president only when you decided that inaction is the best thing for you to do.
I'll throw this to Lagos shortly, but I don't know if you want to quickly respond to that, because I don't know, what they seem to be saying is that, you seem to be providing a leeway for the former government to have folded its arms and done nothing about the situation.
Their view, it's okay, everybody has his own view, but the way I felt it then, that was exactly what I said. Would it help if the former chief security of the state supported the former government? To me, that would have been very, very easy.
Yeah, but do you agree that, if he had all the apparatus of government
the fault belongs to the government then. Actually, they have every tools to do. The reality will come if we have similar things that were of what is happening in Lagos. This bring back this NSAS panel. It should be established in Borno. The kind of information you will get then, it will give us a leeway too. It will give us a big leeway.
The judicial panel on the Bring Back Our, or will it be on the Chibok girls, or will it be on abductions in general?
Total abduction.
It should be on the entire terrorism.
Entire terrorism. That will help a lot. That will help a lot. What you could hear may be different with what all that we are saying, and the reality will come to light.
Indeed.
And also to say that the Borno State governor wasn't the chief security officer at the time Chibok girls were taken away. Remember, there was a state of emergency in that state.
But he was still the governor.
He was the governor, but he wasn't in charge of security. There was a state of emergency. So that ordinarily he would have been taken away from going on about the other affairs apart from security. But in terms of security, he was no longer in charge. It was the military that was in charge of security.
Yeah, but he was still at that time. Some people would not excuse him, because as long as he wasn't taken away, he also had a duty in terms of security to the citizens of his state. If he was still governor, and the duty of government is to provide security of lives and property, the primary aim of any government and governor and president and local government chairman should be to provide security. Even though there was a state of emergency and he wasn't taken away as stipulated in the Constitution, there would have been arguments that he could not wash his hands clean and say, no, I was not in charge of security at all. You don't think so?
No, I don't think so, because as long as that was it, then there shouldn't have been a state of emergency if he was still the one in charge of security. Even the architectural security of Nigeria today, the reason why we cannot hold state governors accountable when issues of insecurity happen is because it's at the federal level. And so even with the case of the peculiarity with Borno State, again, was that there was a state of emergency. The other affairs, how he behaved or whatever, that's a different thing. But when it comes to security, with our present architectural security state of the nation, you can't hold state governors accountable. They have that name, but it's just in paper. When we begin to have state policing and all of that, the box will be on their table to do something for their states.
Well, that's definitely subject for another conversation. But let's quickly flip this to Lagos now. I know my colleagues have questions for you here.
Well, yeah, thank you, Malkwe. Let me begin with what you began with, Malkwe, with Mr. Allen, when you were talking about the coping mechanisms of the parents. My question is actually, Mr. Yuba, about the girls that have gone to their parents. What's happening to them? We hear that some of them seem to be fine. Some of them have refused to go back to school. Some of them have gotten married. Some of them do not believe that education is for them any longer. Can you give us a snippet of what is happening to even the ones that have been released and back to their parents now?
Yes, issue of trauma is not cannot be cancelled, especially on younger age like those girls. To cope with traumatic actions would take longer period, and decision making by them again will still take another time. But and then most of the parents desire that they see their kids very close to them. They don't want them anywhere again. They have missed them enough, and they want to continue to see them very close to them. That will serve as a kind of comfort. I have regained my daughter back. Please stay near me. I want to see you. What I went through when you are not around was so much. So seeing you closer to me is a healing. But the first ones that came back, you know, some of them must have graduated from up to university. Those ones have their life back, and they do visit the parents, and the parents are quite happy to see them graduates, and they have their life in their hands. But the ones that came back later, they are the ones that the help wasn't there enough, sponsorship or privilege, and also desiring that their daughters needs to be with them. Let them marry if they want to marry. Let them go ahead and establish their families and so. But I believe if there were a kind of that they will still be in a safer hand. We can train them. They can go forward. They could have passed through a kind of counseling session until they regain back their minds and go back to school. That would have been order, but those privileges wasn't there. It wasn't as the ones that the first batch. That is the problem.
Well, Madam Yusufu, if I can ask you this one, we recall what the president said at the time he was being inaugurated, where he said, we cannot claim to have defeated Boko Haram without rescuing the Chibok girls and all other innocent persons held hostage by insurgents. Fast forward 2021, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs was quoted as saying that the federal government has not forgotten the Chibok girls. Does this in any way bring comfort and hope?
Absolutely not. It doesn't bring any comfort at all, especially from a party and a government that when they were in opposition used the Chibok girls as a campaign slogan. And at every moment, the president and the party, the APC, would talk about Chibok girls in 2014 and early 2015. And right now we have 112 of them that are still in captivity, and that nothing has been done about it. At the Bring Back Our Girls movement, we are asking for disclosure and closure. There's a General Sabo report that up to now has not been made public, and and why is that so? In terms of the girls that had been, just to go back to the question that was asked earlier, the girls that have been rescued, the Bring Back Our Girls movement, we were stopped from seeing the girls that have been rescued, and also they were forbidden from speaking to us or reaching out to us. It's once in a while you just see them send a message to say they're thanking us for what we did. But the most important thing, I think Dr. Alan Manasseh will be able to speak more on this, is the fact that in terms of the girls that have been brought back, yes, there's the earlier ones returned at the 57 that escaped on their own. Some of them have actually finished university. But the later ones that were rescued, the ones that were rescued, the ones that came and negotiated for, most of them are frustrated. Some of the stories we hear back, they've been kept in one place. A lot of them are frustrated because after being rescued from 2016 to almost, I think, as of last year, if I could remember, some of them are yet to write the SSCE. And it's enough to be frustrated. How can you, for 4 years, you have not yet been trained to even be allowed to write SSCE? You're kept in one place and not allowed to associate with other students. It has been quite frustrating for them. But I think it's something that Dr. Alan Manasseh will be the one to be able to elaborate more on that.
Yes, I think as strangers as far as the issue of Chibok girls is.
Just one moment, Mr. Allen. Madam, is there any reason given for not allowing these children to interface with the necessary publics that wish to see them? Is there any reason given by government?
I think that we haven't gotten any reason, and this question should be thrown at the government. Why is it that they are shielding them from those that they know would be able to hold them accountable on the issue of rehabilitating our Chibok girls and ensuring that they get the life that the terrorists try to truncate? Because if at the end of the day we do not get every Chibok girl to have gone to school, then the terrorists would have won, because what they really want is to ensure that their lives are truncated and they do not get the education that they are supposed to get. So the question ought to be answered by our government, and these are the things that we are all asking for. We are asking for disclosure from the government. We are asking for closure. We are asking for feedback mechanism. In the last how many years, the government haven't even spoken to the parents. They don't say anything, and every year, once in a while, they bring out a statement that sort of like copy and paste and change certain words and change the dates. That's not the way. That's not the way of governance. Government should be there for the people, honestly.
If I may, let's quickly go to Mr. Manasseh then, if you have more information on how these girls have fared.
Exactly. On the issue of the Chibok girls, just as Aisha said, out of the 21 and the second batch of 82, none of them have graduated any school. They were all taken to the school in Yola, AUN, and the complaint that led to quite a number of them dropping out of that school and some of them even getting married was that they were writing their final high school exam. They were done with WAEC. They were writing the NECO before they were abducted. And to them, if yes, their level of education was low, looking at where they were coming from and the kind of teachers available at the school, but they were thinking that any preliminary class should be done within first or second year of the preliminary class. But down the line, there were no clear communication to them that, okay, you are going to write your exam at so time, then you proceed into school, or there will be a specific kind of exam for you to be considered as an entry qualification for you into the university. That did not happen, and that was why some felt like we are not becoming younger. We were taken when we were about 16, 17, 18, thereabout, and today, they are becoming above 20, so they feel like they were young women, and some of them felt they need to get married because they did not see a clear departure from where they were in Chibok and the kind of the quality, the approach, and the focus, the future of their education when they were taken there. So they dropped out, and some of them are not going back to that school again. And even those that are still in that school, every now and then they do lament. Even yesterday, before the start of the campaigns globally, I have been in touch with a lot of them. They are still complaining. That was why.
What is the complaint this time around?
The complaint was that why they desire acceleration of whatever they are doing. You understand? Some of them feel like they need to be opened up. They need to interact. Even in that school, they are kept to themselves. They were not allowed. Yeah, they are not allowed to relate with the other students in AUN. which supposed to be another form of psychosocial support. And that was why I was against even the kind of rehabilitation that the Chibok girls passed through when they were kept at Women Development Center and nobody was having access to them. Before they were rescued, I was part of a lot of civil society network that teamed up and they were working to develop psychosocial support and any other form of support waiting for the Chibok girl to be rescued. And immediately the Chibok girls got rescued, what we were expecting was for the government to say, okay, civil society network and NGO, these are the girls now, what do we do? Because government alone don't have the capacity to do most of what the development partners will come together and do. So all those team that we've built waiting for the Chibok girls to come back, none of them had access to the Chibok girls. They were blocked, kept at the Women Development Center, and even when UNFPA donated fund about $2 million for the rehabilitation of the girls, have we gotten any accountability about what happened? No. So these girls left that place, and when they went to Yola, there was one that was even dismissed because she kept getting angry, she kept snapping out, because her rehabilitation was not completed. So we keep talking, open these girls up, let them tell their story. Let them interact with other students because that will also give them a broader look at life. And then when they are open up, it's not just because government is ready to pay tuition fee for them at any school and then they are dumped there. If anyone has ability to be taken by an organization or by family to be taken to another school in another community, let that be done.
Mm-hmm. So Mokwe, what is happening is that there is captivity in freedom. Mm-hmm. They've been brought back, but they are secluded from other students. They are kept on their own, and they're increasingly getting frustrated. And it's really not fair. After 7 years after you were abducted, you were writing your SSC, you are still at that stage 7 years later because they have not even been allowed to write the SSC for them to be able to enter university. And so they are frustrated.
So what sort of
I have some of them.
What sort of schooling then are they doing at AUN?
I don't know. I have 10 of them that was sponsored by a couple and one human rights lawyer in America. They were taken to the US out of the 57 that earlier escaped. Mm-hmm. Some of them have graduated university, and they are doing very well. If you engage them, you know that yes, there is progress in as far as these ones are concerned. Then they are from the same class, from the same community. So it means if these girls were exposed, were taken to other schools, they would have done better. I remember when we went to Chibok with Gordon Brown, the former UK Prime Minister, the first thing he said is, where are the other girls? I want to take them to school in the UK. And he was ready to even, the ones that came and spoke with him, they were about 7. He said, please, can I have the parents of these girls? Let me, please get their consent, process their travel document. I will take this as my responsibility to take them to school.
So what happened?
What happened was issue of blocking them from the state government. No, the governor will say, these are my daughters, I need to take care of them, I will take them to school. And you talk to the people at the local politician, at the level of the local government, they will tell you, I need to get clearance from the governor before I do this. And the office of Gordon Brown keep waiting and waiting, nothing happened. And you remember, he was the same person that brought the issue of safe school initiative on board. And what happened? The Chibok school has not been completed. The Chibok school is not in use, And we had about 3,000 other children that were part of that school from Form 1 to Form 6, aside the 503 students that were writing their final year exam.
So it would seem that as a result of this particular abduction, rather than for Chibok as a community to even be able to heal and even maybe fare even better, maybe as a result of attention being focused on the community, they don't seem to be faring any better.
It's absolutely not happening, because let me tell you something. Even the safe school component that had to do with the transfer of students, at some point, no single student from Chibok benefited from the transfer window. We had to make an issue because by then we had some people that migrated from Chibok and they settled somewhere in some community in Kuje. We had to talk to Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, then as a Minister of Finance, to put pressure on the steering committee to even go to Kuje and profile some of the students for the transfer window. If not, as far as Chibok school was concerned, no single student was taken as far as list coming from Borno State, none. So what we are saying is, when we ask for accountability, these are the kind of things we are talking about. We are not saying everything must be, upgraded or changed overnight in Chibok, but there are simple basics. You know the content of the Safe School Initiative. How many millions of dollars were donated for the Safe School? And we know that Chibok school, how much will it take? The prototype was presented to us that, okay, this is the design, this is what we want to be built in Chibok. Let them take that design today and compare with what is on ground. A substandard building that every breeze will just pull something down, and then 7 years down, we cannot prove to Boko Haram that, yes, we cannot be pushed, we cannot be cowed into accepting your narrative that, yes, education is actually a taboo. By building something in Chibok and turning the school into somewhere that the children will come in and say, yes, now we are safe, now we are comfortable because we are seeing something different. As I speak to you today, the entire local government in Chibok, there is no school that you can go and find one single computer or library.
Right. Mr. Manasseh,
there are people finishing secondary school that they have never set their eyes on simple computer.
Right, Mr. Manasseh, if I can come in just a moment and take this to Mr. Bassa. I mean, from this conversation we're having this morning, the government clearly has a lot of answers to give. And it now makes sense that the theme for this year's commemoration is disclosure and closure. But Mr. Bassa, the government, yes, has a lot of questions to answer. But just yesterday, one of these questions was put to the government, the Minister of Information and Culture. And this is what he had to say. I'd like you to tell me what you gleaned from the response of Mr. Lai Mohammed. Please take a listen.
Today being the anniversary, is it the 6th anniversary? 7th anniversary of the kidnap, of the abduction of the Chibok girls, and what Nigeria is doing, what the government is doing about it. I think the government has more than ever demonstrated its concern for the issue of the security in the nation through the town hall meeting it held in Kaduna less than a week ago. There is need for our traditional rulers and our religious leaders to continue to encourage interfaith, inter-ethnic marriages.
So that was part of what the Minister of Information and Culture said. But Mr. Bassa, what did you glean from that?
What has interfaith marriage going to do with security, for God's sake? Someone who could not even keep record of what these girls has passed through after 7 years of turmoils, and he is just missing out on the basics. What has their conference or meeting going to do with bringing back these girls when knowingly that these girls are still in captivity and we need to bring them back? These insurgents, I think Shekau declared that there will be no light in Borno State. And even after fixing the light, he went and still bombed the light. He warned them that until they give him light in Sambisa, there will be no light in the whole state. This man exists, and he's still there. And you are busy doing conferences, saying things about interfaith marriage. What has that going to do with Shekau or the atrocity of the insurgency in this country? For God's sake, please, my dear minister, as much as we love you and you are part of this country, know how to talk and know what you are saying at all time. Give people hope. Speak as if it pains you. That empathy should come out of whatever we are saying, especially the government officials. If it is his child, if one of his child is among the Chibok girls, I'm sure that's not how he's going to speak. But since it is something that we can just come to the air and air out our view and say whatever we want to say and think that we are pleasing people, that's not the best for this government, and that's not the best for every leader. Please know what you are saying at all given time. Security matters a lot for the people.
Okay, we need to go to break quickly, but when we return, we'll round off on this topic. But know this, the conversation still continues, so please stay with us. Oh, you're welcome back. We're winding down on this conversation. But Mrs. Yesufu, I don't know if you want to maybe briefly respond to what you heard the minister said, but I'd like you to also add to it the fact that, for me personally, one of the most remarkable things I find interesting about this movement is the hope you have kept alive for 7 years. And I wonder, do you sometimes fear the worst? I know you have the hope, but do you fear any worst? And even if the girls return today, what are your concerns, really?
So for me, just hearing what the minister said, what struck out for me is the impunity. The impunity of knowing that nothing will be done to him. It doesn't matter. He can decide that he doesn't know the numbers. Because yeah, we would say that sometimes we do forget certain things. So there was no reason to have asked, is it the 6th or the 7th? Just say anniversary. That means you even care for the people. But when you have impunity, where they feel that, oh, they can say and do anything, and there's no repercussion for any bad behavior, it goes away that way. It's really sad on that issue. On the issue of the Chibok girls, absolutely, hope alive. We know that our government, the Nigerian government, has what it takes to rescue our Chibok girls, to account for every one of them, not just our Chibok girls, Leah Sharibu, and everyone in captivity. We have what it takes to crush the Boko Haram. We have what it takes to go after them and win this war against insurgency. Yes, there are moments where we are down, moments when you look into the eyes of the parents, you don't even know what to say to them, because for 7 years we've been telling them, you know, to hold on to that hope, to hold on to that hope. There are moments you feel that you fear the worst. Yes, some of the girls could be dead by now, but the most important thing that we keep saying is the fact that every one of them must be accountable. And what every Nigerian need to understand is the fact that as long as Chibok girls are not accounted for, it simply means that there is zero value on the Nigerian life, and every one of us should be worried, because what happens if we are taken away? Just hearing the minister talking about they had some conference in Kaduna, does he know that there are students, Afaka students, that are still in captivity that the government hasn't brought back? Is it about them meeting and drinking and having some gist over drinks, and that's it? That's the kind of security we are asking for? No, things have worsened, and we've seen a situation whereby we are all prisoners in our houses. People can't even travel. You can't even go out the way you used to go before. You can't even travel to neighboring states. Nigerians are basically living in open prisons, and that's not the way to go.
Well, at this point, we have to thank you for coming. I can see that, you know, I don't know if the groups are all coordinated and together. Enough is Enough also released a statement on the anniversary. Is that also part of your statement? The Abuja part of the Bring Back Our Girls movement, is it also part of your statement?
We have Enough is Enough is an organization of its own.
Indeed.
Yes, they have their own statement. We will all work together. Abuja has its own, of course, that we put out talking about the disclosure and closure. And then there's the global statement, because Abuja is not just only, Bring Back Our Girls movement is not just only in Abuja. We have Lagos, we have Washington, and other places. So there's a global statements being released differently, and also activities that are going on.
The 7 demands that are in that statement, they are also a part of what you're asking for?
Yeah, basically, on the overall, they are basically the things that we also are asking for. But most importantly, that disclosure, it's very important. The General Sabo report should be made public. What investigation? So that we stop all of these conspiracy theories. This happened. Even if it happened, let it come out. Let the people be punished. Whatever, if there are people who have done any wrong, we can't just allow the nation to just keep going or grappling on all of these conspiracy theories that are out there.
I have to thank you. Thank you for always keeping this in the consciousness of Nigerians, that indeed, you know, so many of our children were taken away at this time 7 years ago, and that, you know, we must never forget until they all come back safely. Thank you so much for coming on the program this morning. Ayuba John Bassa is the national coordinator of the Goza Christian Community Association, Alan Manasseh, strategic team member, Bring Back Our Girls movement, and Aisha Yusufu. You all know Aisha Yusufu. Thank you so much for coming on this morning. That will be for this segment, and we'll be back shortly to take on another matter. Please stay with us.
Certainly a conversation that is never going to go away until all of the needful is done. Another conversation is that which you see on your screen, and that is that of health workers, especially at when we're contending with the pandemic. I wonder how they handled this 100 years ago. Most certainly, I don't think we had the kind of health worker problems that we had now. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to come out of it that easily.
Well, clearly they didn't have as much challenges, really, and the population maybe was not as much as this.
Okay.
With the population bulge comes a lot of things to contend with, and it will seem that things have even gotten more complicated.
Absolutely.
And the health sector should be a sector that really is optimally operated. It should be that efficient, effective sector of any society. The health sector is vital because it's closely tied to life. And I mean, what is life without life, right? But the challenge here is for decades now in Nigeria, we've had major challenge with the health sector. Is it administration? Is it manpower? Is it equipment, infrastructure, the facilities? I mean, you can have a long list of the challenges you have in the health sector. And decades after, these challenges are still there. And the gratifying fact is that the presidency came up with this presidential committee on salaries and hazard allowance for the health sector, because that has been a major challenge. NARD has been up in arms with the federal government. Last year we had a strike. This year again another strike. And you have Joheso also agitating and others saying that we need this to work. First, deal with our welfare, talk about infrastructure. So this morning we're taking a look at how far so far, as you will say.
Absolutely. And of course, that conversation takes us back to Maupe in Abuja.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have with us in the studio Professor Innocent Uja, who is the president of the Nigerian Medical Association. Prof, you're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you very much, Maupe.
It looks like one battle, I don't know what to say, whether it is ended now or it's simmering somewhere. A truce of some sort has been called between the federal government and striking doctors. Is it the Nigerian Association? I'm always mixing between national and Nigerian, but I think it's the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors, NARD. They have called a truce. They have called up their strike and said, we're going to give peace a chance. 4 weeks to monitor what it is that the federal government, whether they would live up to their promise of fulfilling their mandate. But beyond that, we've also seen a larger conversation around hazard allowance, which involves all medical workers. Where would you say we currently are at with the ongoing conversations, and even if you're optimistic that this time around substantial progress will be made?
Well, thank you very much. Let me just say that the Nigerian doctor is very concerned about the quality of care of our patients. It is for the patients that we are trained, and we are usually at the forefront of providing quality health care for our patients. So anything that tends to disrupt or that will make the patient pain more severe than what it is not acceptable to us. So by and large, the issue that came up, fortunately the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors have suspended their action, and the government has started the process to look into some of the problems. Yes, the issue of hazard allowance has been on record. That last year during COVID, there was some palliation in terms of the hazard allowance, but that didn't last for long. And therefore, to have a permanent hazard allowance for health workers, it became necessary that we begin to come together, and we came together to look at issues and to see how far we can go so that we don't keep on coming in and out, because disruption of health service anytime is a very painful thing for doctors.
So the question is, are you optimistic that this time around progress will be substantial progress? It would not be a brief progress as was witnessed last year, where we only had the hazard allowance given specifically for, I think, for a period of 3 months.
Well, it's our hope and expectation that this time around we are coming to understanding of the processes, and we believe that the government is serious to ensure that they meet their own side of the bargain. And if that is done, I believe that all will be well.
How would you, respond? Because only recently, too, the federal government, I don't want to say they fought back, but it would seem that they also decided that they would remind doctors that some of the associations were not formed as trade unions. They said, oh, the NMA was not formed as a union. How are you balancing, the core purpose of your association with also demanding better welfare for doctors?
Well, the Nigerian Medical Association is not a union. I think we must be very emphatic on that. Nigerian Medical Association is a professional body of doctors in Nigeria. And in doing so, there are so many trajectories. One, the doctor must be competent, must be knowledgeable, and be competent. The doctor must continually train. The doctor would need equipment to work with. The doctor would need an enabling environment to operate. So these are not union things. These are calling as doctors. That's the calling of the doctor. And to do that, we must ensure that these things function. There must be some agreement in all of the things I've talked about: continuous training, providing quality health services, ensuring that if there are gaps, we have to let the authorities know, because if we don't do that, we'll be failing in our responsibilities. And I think this is clearly what we are bringing to bear. It's not about unionism. We are not unions. We are professional bodies. And if you look at it, we talk with evidence. Whatever we say, we back with evidence. And that is science. And medicine is predicated on science. So it is not about unionism. If you look at that, I've been the president of the Nigerian Medical Association for getting to 1 year. And each time we've done, whatever we have done was through advocacy, through consultation, constructive engagement, and letting government know what we needed to do. For instance, even before I came in, during the early days of COVID, there were some people who were imported. I say Chinese doctors or technicians, but the Nigerian doctors felt that we have the capacity to confront COVID-19. And we made it very known. That is not unionism. That is ensuring that the right things are done. Doctors and other health workers show clear commitment.
The question is, how are you able to balance? Because, I mean, perhaps the fear will now be, yes, indeed, you're a professional association, a professional organization, but some of the things that you have tabled are some of the things that doctors need, are things that are needed urgently for the smooth working of hospitals and health facilities, and also to ensure the health and well-being of Nigerians. How are you able to balance this in such a way that, and in many instances, they're needed urgently? The federal government only recently, when they went around in the wake of COVID, said they didn't realize how bad things were in terms of facilities at the hospitals. How are you able to balance and press home more urgently the need for the government to take action, even while at the same time being professional about it?
Yeah, but this is what I have said. Constructive engagement, dialogue, advocacy, those are the elements of negotiation. That's the message we carry to government. We negotiate, we informed them. If probably COVID had not come, some of the government officials may not have known how bad it is. We've been crying for improved healthcare, but that's not unionism. That's about professionalism. We know this, and we make these things known to the authorities. We needed this. Okay, for instance, we're talking about the molecular biology unit, right? PCR. When we say that we needed more PCR, that's not unionism. It is the equipment to enable us to work, to research, and also to provide clinical service. So how does that go? How has that become unionism? That we need,
what is wrong with being called a union anyway?
No. You see, the Nigerian nomenclature of unionism is fight. I'm not for fight, but it's rough. And that is not what the Nigerian doctor stands for. And the NMA has consistently stated, at least under my direction, under my leadership, that we are for negotiation, we are for advocacy, and I've done a lot of advocacy, I must say that.
Would you say that strikes is descending to ruffle?
Well, I don't know what you mean by that. The issue that when strikes happen, is to press home the demand. And it's the end of a process. Strike is the end of a process. And I also want to put it on record that for over 20 years, Nigerian Medical Association has not gone on strike, because we believe very strongly on advocacy. We believe on negotiation, a constructive engagement, and that's what we've been doing.
But is it a tool that you're afraid to use?
Which what?
A strike.
Why should you go on strike if all we need will be met? The message we are carrying is, let these things happen, because there is no need for strike.
You have
if these things happen.
Excuse me. You have seen, younger doctors in their own association go on strike.
Yes.
Is it a tool you approve of?
Well, let me tell you, the Nigerian Association of Resident Doctors is a body of its own. It's one of the 9 affiliates of the Nigerian Medical Association. So they have their own organogram, they have their own structure. They are an affiliate of the Nigerian Medical Association. And I, as the Nigerian president of Nigerian Medical Association, we discuss, we try, of course we have the more senior people, but there are also doctors. Many of them are not as young as you would think. A resident is a person in training, a doctor in training. That doesn't mean he's a young person. So those are completely different issues, as you can see. However, we meet, and as I said, it's one of the 9 affiliates of the Nigerian Medical Association. We have the medical
The question I asked, sir, is whether or not you approve of the use of strike actions.
I don't mean approving. Well, I don't have right to approve. I don't have the right to approve.
What I mean approve, not in your position as NMA president, but as a doctor as well. Is it a tool you are, I mean, if you say, for instance, that the NMA is, for the past 20 years, we have not gone on strike.
No, we are
not a union.
No.
And it will seem that one of the reasons why, I mean, I'm not saying that the NMA is a union, but it would seem that one of the things that you seem to be very reluctant to be associated with being called a union. You already said it yourself, it's ruffle. Those were your words.
Yes.
It's fight. Mm-hmm. We have seen the NARD consistently agitating for what rightfully should be theirs, and also asking for better conditions.
Yes.
Do you think that the tactics that they have employed will be considered ruffle?
Well, I don't have the right to determine whether their tactics is right or wrong. What I know as a president of NMA is to use negotiation, use constructive engagements, and of course, we need to advocate. Because you see, if you do not advocate, people may not know what the issues are. Those of us who are there, we know how it feels. And what I'm saying is that if the government comes up and explains these are some of the things that we are doing, this is what we should do, this is how we should do it, I'm sure everybody would understand.
Prof, there's a larger conversation around, medical personnel going on strike. And I don't think that conversation is happening in just Nigeria alone. Is it something that the NMA has discussed as a body? And, if it's something you're willing to take a stand on?
Well, I think maybe we'll take it to World Medical Association. As you know, since you say it's not within Nigeria alone. And like I said, for the past 20 years, Nigeria Medical Association has not gone on strike because we believe that we have to use constructive engagement.
It doesn't mean that doctors in Nigeria haven't gone on strike. Yes,
no, of course we have gone on strike previously. The Medical Association
hasn't gone on strike. Even the NMA has gone on strike. So
no, well, before.
Yes.
Yes, we have. We have gone on strike before, but you see, you have to change strategies with changing times. And that is what we are doing. That's why I say I've been in NMA since 1981. As a resident doctor, I was a vice president of Nigerians, and at that time it was National Association of Resident Doctors. I have been vice presidents of Nigerian Medical Association. But the changing times require that we must change our strategy. And that is why we start and we continue to use some element of strategy. I mean, fortunately, maybe because Prof. I was trained in NIPS, and we now find that it is necessary to use strategies, use negotiation, use advocacy to get
Prof, if I may come in now, speaking of those strategies which you have employed, I mean, you say NMA hasn't gone on strike in 2 decades. Nobody fancies a strike, really. But would you say that the NMA, or let me even say the medical sector at large, is better off as a result of those strategies you have put in place over the past 2 decades as an association? Would you say the medical sector is better off based on this strategy? Prof, let me just rephrase that if you can hear me. I'm asking that since you have changed strategies and no more strikes for the past 20 years, would you say that the medical sector is better off as a result of the new strategies employed over the past 20 years?
Well, gradually we are getting there. We couldn't say we have got all the best that we would need. For instance, it took some time for us to get PPE for, the highly infective COVID-19. So the truth of the matter is that
the issue of COVID-19, pardon me, the issue of COVID-19 is, last year, this year issue. But I'm talking, if you compared what the health sector was 20 years ago with what it is now, which one would you say is better, 20 years ago or now?
Well, the issue is that, I cannot make a statement of finality because I have to provide evidence. If I say it was better before than now, I must be able to have evidence because whatever I say as a professor and as a clinician, we have to have evidence. So maybe this is another research question that you're asking.
No, Prof, this is not a research question. This is a field you've been in for decades. It will be understandable if you are an engineer, and I was asking you about the health sector. But you are, you've said it, you've been almost at different levels. You've headed even government institutions. So you should know, more than anyone, if the health sector is better now than it was then, or if it's otherwise.
Well, you see, the truth is that I cannot be the dancer and the drummer. There are some people, we want even the media to tell us how far we are doing. We believe that we need to do better than what we are doing. There's no doubt about that. We need to do better than we are doing. For instance, let's talk about the PCR machine. When we say that we didn't have sufficient PCR machine, COVID-19 exposed it. And now we have over 50-something PCR machines. It may not be enough, but certainly it's better than 2. 50, 60 is better than 2. But what we look at is to look, to the future and plan for the future so that Nigerians can actually get the best out of the health system. It's very, very important. And You know, 2 weeks ago, myself and my friend Chris Ngige, who were talking on issues about healthcare. He feels very strongly about that, and I want to let him know that as a friend, and of course, what I said was correct, but he feels strongly about that, and I want to let him know that I want to say that I apologize to him as a person, but the truth of the matter is that we need to do better than what we are doing.
Do you think that we have the will to do it? From what you have seen so far and the constant agitations that we have seen and the frequent strikes we have seen by one of your affiliates, do you think that there is a will at the level of government to do that?
Well, let me tell you this. The meeting we held yesterday clearly showed the commitment. I'm saying this from my own mind, and to be honest, everybody that was supposed to be there was there. The meeting was held in a very conducive and congenial atmosphere. There was no shouting, there was nothing. We put our points scientifically and humanely. And we all agreed, this is the way to go. And that is how it should be. And I'm happy, and I told them that I came to NMA to bring what we call clinical decorum, to ensure that our patients do not suffer unnecessarily. That is the truth. And the meeting yesterday clearly demonstrated that even all the groups are agreed on the modalities, on the strategies to move the issue of hazard allowance forward. We even introduced the issue, we even proposed, and this was agreed, on the retirement age, moving it from 60 to 65 and 70 as the case may be. And this was said to be, that they would be taken to the authority for consideration. Previously, probably it will end either in a shouting match and the rest, and that is not true. That was not the case yesterday, I must say this. And all of us agreed that the meeting was held under congenial atmosphere. The ministers were there, ministers of health were there, a minister of labor and the state, Minister of State for Labor was there, permanent secretaries were there, and I think that is what should be. We have a stakeholders meeting where we all put, because what is the ultimate outcome is to improve the care of our patients. Mm-hmm. That is the ultimate outcome.
Indeed. I think that ultimately that's what Nigerians are looking for.
Yeah.
To improve the general well-being, health of Nigerians, and that of course includes doctors.
Yeah, that's right.
Of course, so we would like to also see that our doctors do not suffer as a result of trying to, serve Nigerians. So we have to thank you very much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. It's an ongoing conversation.
That's correct.
I want to believe that very soon again we will be inviting you shortly. Professor Innocent Uja is the president of the Nigerian Medical Association, and we were talking about the healthcare sector. Well, that's it for this segment of the program. I don't know if we have any mails, gentlemen, do we?
Well, we have just 3 right now, Maupe, and the first one is from Comrade Dare, who says, Chibok girls, 7 years of abduction by Boko Haram shows how unserious we are as a nation to the entire global community. I can imagine the trauma their parents must have suffered, waiting and hoping to see these children again. So sad.
Well, anybody talks about fighting insurgency says, we know there is technology available to end this war. Why is the Nigerian government not using it? I'll put a question mark for you there.
Indeed, big question mark, and hopefully will not be rhetorical. Andrew Alola says 7 years after Chibok schoolgirls. Obviously, the revelations from the Chibok girls debacle is a serious indictment of the governments in Borno and Abuja. A true independent inquiry might be a ray of hope. Well, we have to thank you so much for sending your comments and messages, and thank you for being a part of the conversation this morning. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
Well, let me just say, don't ever lose hope. I'm Kayode Kikiolu.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Please do have a wonderful day and stay safe.